Well, earlier today at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Trump hosted a signing ceremony for his Board of Peace, which he said would become one of the, quote, most consequential bodies ever created.
We're committed to ensuring Gaza is demilitarized, properly governed, and beautifully rebuilt. It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the Board of Peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. It's going to be a great thing to watch.
All right, so the Board of Peace, its initial task is to deal with the situation in Gaza, but it appears that it may have a life after Gaza. And this, so right now we have, let me see, we have about almost 20 countries that have signed on. Now, if you want to have permanent status, if you sign up, invitations have been sent out to about 35, well, almost 50 countries. Roughly 35 nations are said to have joined, with others invited. And if you want to be you want to have a permanent seat on this board, it's $1 billion that you got to bring to the table. Eyebrows have been raised over who's been invited and, what might the mission of this peace board be after Gaza. Joining me now to discuss this is Dr. David Adesnik. He's the Vice President of Research at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Dr. Adesnik, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Always glad to join.
So what do we know so far about this board? I know that we've got some information, not in its totality, but what do we know thus far?
Well, there's been somewhat mixed messages. Of course, it has its roots in Gaza and in the challenge of solving the war in Gaza, having something better follow the Hamas-run mini-state that was the cause of that war. There is a charter. As you discussed, you can sort of purchase permanent membership. And it's also worth noting it's very much a America or Trump-controlled organization. The chairman has a lot of power to invite and expel members. So while there's some talk of it being like the United Nations, it's by invitation only, and it's not going to be necessarily a global group.
President Trump is the chairman. Is that with the position of President of the United States, or is he just the permanent chairman even after he is no longer President of the United States?
Well, it's not permanent. The charter does specify that he should even designate a successor. What's interesting is it doesn't say that the chairman will necessarily always be the president of the United States. It could be, he could nominate someone from another country. He could nominate an American. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a world leader necessarily. It suggests, though, that it would be a head of state.
But it does not run concurrent with his term as president? He could remain as chairman?
I guess that's possible. It doesn't seem to envision it. I think, it's not like he doesn't have a fixed term exactly.
So the initial task, as I mentioned earlier, is Gaza, but it appears by what I'm seeing that they could take on other issues globally that require a peace initiative.
That's absolutely the case. If you listen to what the president's aspirations are for it, that's also the reason there's been a measure of backlash. Some European countries are concerned precisely that it's an effort to sideline the United Nations. And it's also not clear, would there need to be members who have some sort of jurisdiction? If you're dealing with some different war, what if the country involved or none of its neighbors are members of the Board of Peace? Would parties to the war be ready to listen, or would it be a problem if all the neighbors are not in on the game?
David, I want to ask you, from a perspective of Israel, I mean, Gaza, this was the launching pad for October 7th, the terrorist attack. All these all these countries gathering together there, I mean, I know not physically, but they're all going to have a stake in Gaza, and some of these are not friendly to Israel. I mean, we've got Turkey, we've got Qatar, both that were harboring Hamas.
Right. I think that's the principal objection that the Israelis themselves initially raised. It's also unclear exactly what their role would be. So there's this Gaza executive board that has been sort of appointed beneath the Board of Peace to carry out certain roles. But the point about Qatar and Turkey stands, right? Turkey and its president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, they explicitly said, he explicitly said, we are pro-Hamas. We do not consider Hamas terrorists. They are the resistance. And of course, they gave sanctuary to Hamas leaders. There's been a lot of terror financing running through Turkey. Qatar is home to a number of the Hamas leaders. They've had terror finance there. So it really is quite a problem if the priority is solving the Gaza crisis and sidelining Hamas, why you want to invite in some of the countries that have been its biggest supporters.
I want to go back to your comments regarding the United Nations and why some of the European countries like France and the UK have refused to sign on to this. Could this be, and I mean, there's no love lost for the United Nations when it comes to the United States of America. Could this be a flanking movement on the United Nations, kind of undercutting their influence and power?
It's possible, but it is also wise to recall just how many institutions the UN has grown up over time that can do functional things like provide aid, regulate telecommunications. And, you know, my colleagues and I have been very critical of a lot of those organizations and how they run at the UN, the amount of influence given to dictatorships, including those hostile to the United States. But the fact is, it's, you know, tens of billions of dollars are going each year to run it. It has the kind of prestige over time that usually gives it a seat at the table, regardless of the crisis. So it has assets that'll be hard to replace with this new group.
What do you see the long term for is it too early to determine what this Gaza Peace Board will it take shape? Will it be successful? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think perhaps its first test is going to be one of its most difficult, right? It's born out of the situation in Gaza. It's framed broadly as a board of peace, not, you know, tied explicitly to Gaza or permanently. But what if it can't bring peace to Gaza? Will it have a reputation that allows it to function elsewhere effectively? And right now, it's not clear what the means are, right? Just like the United Nations doesn't really have its own troops, or even when it has peacekeepers, they're very reluctant to tackle certain jobs, especially if there are terrorists willing to shoot back at them. Hamas hasn't said it'll disarm.
Right. Well, if history is any indication, their first task is going to be a difficult one. David, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights on this.
Of course, glad to be here.